Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
All right, Sixers fans, welcome in to another episode 155 of Planet 76. My name's Troy. Michael is here with me as per usual. And we got a fun one in store for episode 155. We're talking all things Paul George, the biggest name perhaps in NBA free agency this season. Not counting LeBron James, because let's be honest, does that really count? Because we knew where he was going. But Paul George made his way to Philadelphia. Free agency opened up at 6 p.m. on June 30th, and by 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time, July 1st, the deal was agreed upon for Paul George to become a Philadelphia 76er. Michael and I are both excited about that. And so we'll get into just all that means, all that entails. And even, this last episode that we just recorded, episode 154, we talked about some of those other pieces. We'll talk briefly about how those kind of mesh and how Daryl was even able to get all that done so far. And, yeah, Michael, so I don't know. I don't think you said last episode you weren't awake when that news broke. I wasn't either. I kept waking up in the middle of the night. Might have been thinking about Paul George, let's just be honest. But we knew it was happening. It trended that direction. It slowly kept trending, and then it was like, yeah, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. But, you're walking me through your feelings just when it was official. Paul George.
It's crazy because I ended up staying up until like 2:30 a.m. And I made a post on my Instagram. I'm not sure, who saw it, who didn't. You did. I saw that. I said,
yeah.
What exactly did I say? I said, this is my Paul George post. If he gets signed, because I'm going to sleep.
Right, I'm going to bed.
Like a half hour later, he got signed. And I woke up at like 5 a.m.
I know.
I was like, great. I missed it by a half hour. But most of us were pretty much under the assumption at that point that, you know what, it's going to happen late into the night because, one, for some reason, this is when every big Sixers move happens, late at night on a random board at night. But two, at that point, the Sixers cleared a way for themselves to be the only team in contention to sign Paul George. The Magic were out, especially after they had just signed KCP a few hours prior. God, we talked about last episode.
Right.
But two, also because the Clippers were out. I saw a clip from Paul George's podcast today that said he was kind of upset with with the Clippers' offer to him at first because he wanted to stay with them. He wanted to stay with the Clippers, but he was upset with the offer they made for him, I'm assuming, in free agency once he opted out. So I think that kind of led him over to us, which, again, then cleared the way for them to be the only team pursuing Paul George. And that point, it was more of a when, not if, because we knew he was. Yeah. We just didn't know when he was. So I even before it happened, I kind of accepted it, and I was thinking about it for a couple hours at that point. And I was thinking, you know what? They got Drummond, they got Gordon, they got Oubre. I'm a lot more okay with this now than I would have been if they maybe only got Drummond. If they lost Oubre, then I'd be like, I don't know. But
right.
That's
exactly where I was going to go. So, and I agree, because even the weeks leading up, we were like, all right, if we go after a max player, how limited are we going to be? But by what I'm hearing from you, you are very, very more okay.
Yes.
You're a lot more okay with it because of
yes, and like we talked about last episode, I thought, and most people did too, the main argument against Paul George was, okay, you sign Paul George to $50 million a year, he handicaps you, you can't do anything else. But Daryl Morey made magic, like he just magician, bunny out of a hat. And he did it. Like, the Sixers got Paul George, but they also got some really high-quality depth, and re-signed Kelly Oubre as one of those high-quality depth pieces. And so once all that happened, I thought, you know what? This can work because they still have some money left. They still could make trades, although I don't think they can now because any potential trade candidate is making more money than they have available left now. But they made it work. They signed high quality depth pieces. Like they did it. And again, the Caleb Martin signing was the cherry on top. Was the thing where I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
This Paul George thing is really going to work. That's what I was thinking. That's what I've been thinking of myself the past couple of days. Caleb Martin got signed Saturday morning. Saturday, I was thinking, you know what? You have Oubre, Martin, George as your wing rotation, plus Ricky Council. Who said that? That's really good. That's really good. That's a really good wing rotation. Caleb Martin as your third best wing.
Sure is.
I mean, for the Heat, oftentimes he was like their third best player, not just wing player. So I like it. Some people were leaving comments on my post today like, oh, you didn't want Paul George at first. You know why you were hating on Paul George first? And I explained it. I said, well, the main reason why I didn't want Paul George is because I thought he was going to handicap the Sixers from acquiring more depth that they so greatly needed. But that didn't happen. So most of my worry is gone because they did things to take away that worry for me and for a lot of other people as well. They removed that problem. It's not a problem. Sure, they could have more depth, which we could get into a little bit more in this episode. They could have more. I think they still have a vet minimum or a couple million left. They could get somebody else. Sure, of course, they could have better depth, but it's really good. This is really good depth. Like, this is solid. You have Gordon, Drummond, Oubre, Martin as your 4 other players, 5, whatever. I mean, you have an 8-9-man rotation of Maxey, Oubre, Martin, George, Embiid, Drummond, Gordon. Who am I missing? Council. Like, and then if McCain and Bona get big time, like, I mean, we're talking a really good rotation.
And they're still,
sure, of course. Speaking of
Kyle Lowry campaign,
and we could get into more of this if you want in this episode. I know we're going to talk about it because you said we're going to talk about some of their needs that they still have to address. But like, they kind of just they could use another solid guard. I'm looking at Jeff Doughton Jr. Yes. I know, not many people may know a lot about him. He played for the Bluecoats. Very solid. He got a 2-way with the Sixers. They released him. By the way, something that was saddening to me, and it is what it is. But the Sixers, they not released him, but Terquavion Smith. I don't know if you know who that is, right? Of course, Turk.
Yep.
The Sixers not released him, but he's an unrestricted free agent. They didn't even extend him a qualifying offer. Not that I really know what that means anyway. But I was sad about that because I think he's a guy who could really contribute and add to the Sixers guard rotation. He shot 40% from 3 for the Bluecoats on 10 attempts a game, which is nuts, which is insane.
Wow.
Like, that's crazy. That's more. That's some guys don't even take that many field goals total, and he's taking that in threes per game. Anyway, a couple Bluecoats guys. I think Jeff Doughton is good. He's like a 6'4", 6'5" point guard, so he's kind of bigger. He's kind of a vet. Like, he's 26. He's played a lot of time in the NBA, and he's actually playing for the Sixers Summer League team now. He's very good. I encourage you all to check out some Jeff Doughton clips.
Check out that Sixers Summer
League. But I think that could be, if they do end up missing on Lowry and Payne, I think that'd be cool. He's very good. He could be your third point guard or whatever, your fourth guard off the bench. But this is like an A+ offseason, and I don't know. I'm very excited. I am.
It is an A+ offseason. I think to anybody who like is like, oh, you were like skeptical on Paul George, all that, like, tell them to go watch Planet 76 and say,
we had our reasons.
And that is our concern. Like, obviously, if you know that you can get depth while also getting Paul George, that's a no-brainer, right? But we didn't know that coming in.
If we knew that,
we did not know that. In fact, we were kind of like,
if we knew that, we would have been on the Paul George train since May. Like, that's facts. That's what happened.
Yep, exactly. And so I mean, it's logical. It's more even if you were super team Paul George in May, it's logical now to be even more on team Paul George because of what's transpired in signing Martin, signing Drummond, signing Gordon, signing Oubre again. And so, as you noted, they have these pieces brought in. I think it is important to know what the Sixers do have with the Bluecoats right now, just in case. Right, we're running low on funds at this point, and we're still trying to figure out, filling out this rotation. You mentioned a guard. I see that certainly as the need right now, another guard. But you mentioned these wings that the Sixers have. Have they ever had someone like Paul George?
No.
I mean, no. Paul George is. We've talked about him. He's incredible. And what's most encouraging is that this past season in LA, he played 74 games. He's had some injuries in his career way back with Indiana. You remember the scary one?
Oh, yeah.
He's pushed threes, battled threes, adapted his game. He's still continuing to improve. Even he shot his highest three-point percentage in a season this past year by just a tenth of a decimal point. But, it's still his highest as I look at it right now. 41% on 8 threes a game. Speaking of which, I mean, the majority of his career, you look at 7 threes a game, almost 10 threes a game in Oklahoma City when he was averaging 28 a game. So he chucks up a lot of threes, and he makes a lot, though. 38.5% on his career, but the last, let me do some math. 3 of the last 5 seasons, he's over 41% from 3.
Right.
So can't be mad about that. So what is Paul George, getting with him, his fit, specifically alongside Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, because they haven't had a guy like that. Tobias was a guy who averaged 3-4 3-point attempts a game. Now you come in Paul George, who's going to get up at least 7.5, 8. That's double. And he's going to make more than Tobias Harris. He's going to do more with the ball than a Tobias Harris. He's going to demand the ball a little bit more. There's some unique things that make Paul George, and a lot of that requires him to have the ball and say clear out and let him go get a bucket. Tobias Harris, we weren't doing that. And so it's a new dynamic. Do you like the dynamic? Do you see it working? Do you see it taking time? Like, what's kind of your, specifically with the other 2 stars on this team, how Paul George meshes with them?
Really, and I've talked about it, I think the fit is amazing. And to your point about the 3-point shooting, fun fact, Paul George, and I'll let you guess before I tell you, and this is relevant very much so because this is the kind of role that Paul George is going to be having in the offense. We could talk about that a little more as the episode goes on, but this is going to be the type of role Paul George has in this offense for the Sixers. Guess Paul George's catch and shoot 3-point percentage this past season in LA. Catch and shoot threes, exclusively catch and shoot threes, so he's only catching and shooting immediately or very immediately off the catch.
Okay, that's important with this team. You're right. 46.
Dude, you're close. How are you so close? How could you possibly have gotten this? 45%.
I knew it was
45.4 to be exact. That marks, I mean, I'm thinking that's like very top of the league, I have to imagine. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. But that's very, very up top of the league in terms of catch and shoot 3-point percentage. Do you know how insane that is? 45% on catch and shoot threes. And the reason I bring this up is because...
And think about how
that's
many
what I was just going to say.
Get.
The reason I bring it up is because he's going to be getting so many of these opportunities playing alongside Maxey and Embiid. When has there been a time in Paul George's career where he can just sit back and shoot threes? Like, for big chunks of the game.
Right.
There are going to be times with the Sixers where Paul George can literally just sit back and catch and shoot threes. He doesn't have to drive. He doesn't have to attack the basket. Obviously, he can. He's very good at it. But there will be possessions and stretches of time in games where he can literally just sit and catch and shoot threes. And he's going to get open because, 1, you can't single cover Embiid. 2, you're getting to the point where you can't really single cover Tyrese Maxey. They're going to be sending doubles at these two all game. Paul George is literally going to be sitting there. Dude, I'm 46% on open catch and shoot threes. Like, What are you doing? And he's just going to be drilling threes. But Paul George,
That's good.
Paul George complements this team so well. Obviously, we're talking about offense. We could stay on that for a little while. Then we'll talk about defense. But he complements this team so well on both ends of the floor that I don't really know anyone else has. Maybe even Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy was a lot more ball dominant than Paul George. He was not as good of a shooter, especially off the catch, as Paul George.
Yeah.
Like, I just really like this. I think it could work really well. I think the potential of it working is way greater and higher than it not working. Paul George can play off the ball. He can cut. He can set screens and roll to the basket. Like, he can kind of play as a big occasionally. Like, he can kind of play as a center sometimes on offense. He can set screens, roll, pop out, pop to the basket, like, without Embiid or even maybe with Embiid at times. Like, he gives you so much versatility on offense. You could do so many things on offense with him because he is so flexible. Like, he could play the shooting guard in bigger lineups. He could play the power forward in smaller or bigger lineups, whatever. Like, he can handle the ball. He can play pick and roll with him and Embiid. He can play pick and roll with him and Maxey. I mean, that's such a versatile player. And to have your third option offensively, we have to emphasize that. He's their third best offensive player. Paul George is your third best offensive player. To have a guy that can do that, have a Paul George literally level player, because he's literally Paul George, as your third best offensive player is insane. Name me a team in the NBA that has a Paul George level player as their third option. You can't. And okay, sure, he's not OKC Paul George. He's not even 2 years ago Paul George. But this dude is still legitimately like a top 30, 35 player in the NBA. And he's your third option on offense. And he can do the things that he does. Like, amazing at attacking the basket. Amazing at finishing at the rim. Like, he has his flaws. He's not as athletic as he used to be. He can't quite take on, like, isolation opportunities as well as he used to. He can't quite beat guys off the dribble as well as he used to. But he still has a great handle. He's strong. He's still good at attacking the basket. He's still really good at getting to his spots on the floor. Like, he can do so many things offensively. He's such a versatile player. Like, everybody always talks about versatility, but most people don't actually know what it looks like or know what it means. Paul George gives you so much versatility. He can do so much for your team offensively. And we'll get to the defense in a little bit, but anything you want to add, feel free.
Yeah, versatility for sure, and I think when I think Paul George, I think flexibility in terms of where he's been at in his career and different teams, different teammates, making things happen. I look at, now again, this is just a simple, look at career averages, but his last couple seasons in Indiana. He was around 23 points a game. Then he goes to OKC, where he averages his first year, played 79 games, averages 22 points a game, finished on an All-NBA team that year. And I don't remember what happened between 2017, 18, 19, but then his game...
I remember.
He averaged 6 points more with the same team.
He finished third and fifth in DPOY and MVP.
Third in MVP.
Mm-hmm. He was getting MVP votes. Like,
in 2019.
Obviously, he's not that player anymore.
But that's not long ago.
I just want everyone to. I want to make this clear to everyone, and I want everyone to be clear about this. Yes.
We don't need another.
No. Yes, Paul George is not the same player he was in OKC. Let's all come to an agreement that he's not that, so we don't get mad when he's not averaging 25 plus per game. That's not happening. I just want you to know that. He's not here to do that. He's here to complement Embiid and Maxey and hit threes. And, like, honestly, okay, I don't even want to say this. Paul George is essentially going to... I can't.
Say it.
Paul George, in and I don't mean this because he's a star player. He's an all-star. But essentially, he's going to be a role player. Like, essentially, he's going to be like a mega role player star. Like a very unique hybrid of a guy who could take over at any time, but also a guy who's going to play a certain role that complements your your stars, like the guys on the team. Like he's there because he's going to be amplifying Embiid and Maxey. He's in a way he's a complementary piece. So maybe not role player, but in a way like he's the complementary piece. He's the bridge between Embiid and Maxey and everybody else. Like, obviously, he's still Paul George. Right. He's still an all-star, borderline All-NBA level, but he's really, like, complementing your stars that you currently have right now, if that makes sense.
I get that.
Maybe the wording is weird to say, but he's more so complementing than, like, a guy that you're like, all right, Paul George, give me 25 a game. Like, he can do that, but you can't expect him to. That's not what he's here to do.
Right. And he, again, flexible. He's been around the block. He's been in the Eastern Conference,
right.
In the Western Conference. Going back east for the first time in quite some time. And I mean, it's the Clippers, and it's different because, like, there's not Joel Embiid, but, like, there's, huge names on that team, and we know that, and yet Paul George still went about his business. Again, averaged 22.6 on 16 shot attempts a game, 8 of which being from 3. He played 74 games, was an all-star this season, was an all-star last season, had similar numbers, averaged almost 24. So I don't think he minds coming to a setting, obviously, because he's doing it, but where he teams up alongside Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. It's not going to be a huge adjustment. If anything, it's going to showcase his game a little bit more because now he's playing alongside a Joel Embiid. He's playing alongside Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook, James Harden. It's different because it's Joel Embiid and the gravity that he pulls. And again, the first thing you said, 46% for 3 on catch and shoot. That's going to showcase some things for Paul George that maybe some people in the Eastern Conference forget that he had. Like, let's just be honest.
And that's the thing too. I love how you hit on that. Like, Embiid and Maxey are just so game breaking already. Like, they impose so much. Like they put so much pressure on defenses already that you add a guy like Paul George. One, he's going to get insanely easy looks, perhaps the easiest of his career. Two, Paul George is also pressuring defenses too. Like, you can't guard all 3 of these guys. Sure, it's easy to say that about a trio of Kawhi, James Harden, PG, like you mentioned, but it's a lot different. Embiid and Maxey are way more dynamic than James Harden, and for as dynamic as he is, Kawhi Leonard. Like, this is not the same. Like, this is not the same. You can't make that comparison. I saw a lot of people saying, well, if the Sixers didn't make it work with James Harden, why is it going to work with Paul George? First of all, that's a horrible thing to say because Harden and PG are totally different players, and they bring so many different things to the Sixers. Like, Harden at his best isn't even as good as Paul George defensively now. Like, Paul George defensively now is way better than James Harden ever was defensively. So that's a start. James Harden, a big reason why it didn't work with James Harden is because, like, if he was off offensively, he's not giving you anything defensively. So, yeah, for as great of an offensive weapon as he is, and he was for us, he gives you, if he's shooting tour dates and he's turning the ball over, he's kind of a negative because he's not playing defense. He's not very good at it, at least with Paul George, though. One, he's not the offensive weapon James Harden is, but he's a lot more malleable offensively, like we were talking about. Even if he's off chucking, even if he's having his tour dates himself, he's still a guy where it's like, okay, I'll just move. I'll just cut. Like, find me on the baseline. That's not happening with Harden.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Harden is ball dominant his whole career. That's like nothing wrong with that. That's who he is.
Right.
With Paul George, you don't have to worry about that because he can do stuff with the ball, but he's also super active off the ball. And having your star being able to do that, it's a game changer. It's not the same at all.
This is a weird question. Do you almost think it's, and I'll apologize to those listening because my microphone clearly not working. You might have been able to tell that early in the episode, but I didn't know, so I just moved it out of my way.
Oh.
So lower audio quality on this episode. I do apologize. But my question for you, Michael, is related to that whole James Harden whatever. Do you think it could potentially be a good thing that we got a year of Tyrese Maxey without a third superstar next to him? It was just him and Joel Embiid to see how well Maxey could play and handle it on his own. To see that, okay, the answer isn't to go bring another guard in because Tyrese Maxey's got that covered. We need an elite wing to come in now. Do you think it could be a good thing that there's a gap between Harden and George?
Absolutely. Because one, like you mentioned, it gives Maxey a taste of, okay, I'm the second guy. What can I do?
I'm the guy.
I'm the guy. I'm the point guard. What can I do? I'm the point guard. How can I develop my game to be a better creator for others? He's very good at that. He's become very good at that. He could get better, of course, but he's become very good at that. I'm Tyrese Maxey. I'm the point guard of this team. I'm learning how to create for others. Like, how can I pressure defenses when I'm really the only, like, really good guard on this team? Like, above average. Okay, I don't want to say above average because we had above average guards outside of him anyway. But, like, all-star caliber and higher guard on this team. What can I do? How can I help this team win? What can I contribute? And now that I think he has a full season of that, I think he's thinking, okay, I'm still number 2, but I have a guy who could take more pressure off of me, and I can learn even more about my game and do even more for my game. And the good thing about this is, and then I'll kick it back to you, I like how you mentioned this because this brought up a thought for me that I meant to mention before. In games that, unfortunately, Joel Embiid inevitably will miss, shout out to Joel Embiid, no hate, obviously, Paul George being on the team is also going to help Maxey a lot. Because in this past year, without Harden, well, 6 months, whatever, 7, because of playoffs. Wait, hold on. Without Embiid in the lineup, Maxey has had to do a ton. And the result was oftentimes a loss. I'll just call it what it is. Nothing against Maxey. However, this time around, with Maxey on the team, or with Paul George on the team, this is a time where he could take a lot of pressure off of Maxey when Embiid is out. Maxey won't have to do as much. Maxey won't have to go for 50. He might, but it also could result in Paul George doing way more. And just taking a lot of pressure off of Maxey. So Maxey doesn't have to overextend himself and get all caught up and have to score 50. Again, he might do it. He could do it, but he doesn't necessarily have to. Like, again, people were bringing up that Jazz game last year when Maxey scored 52. I think they won. I guess they did. That won't have to happen anymore. Like, Paul George could be the reason they win by 20 because not only is he a great offensive player, but he's also a great defensive player. So, like, he also takes pressure off of Maxey. Man, this is just going to be great. Like, I'm just really excited. And we're already going on a half hour. I could talk way more. But I don't really have much else to add. We could touch on him defensively a little bit.
Sure.
Let me kick it back to you. Before we do that, let's kick it back to you. What else do you have? What else do you want to add?
Yeah. No, I think that's very, very well said.
Yeah.
It adds a lot, and it's scary
A
for
lot.
other teams.
A lot.
It just is. Paul George is very good. You say this a lot of times with NBA teams. Oh, they have X amount of guys that can give you 30 any night.
Right.
Literally.
The Sixers literally have 3. What other team has
3,
that?
And occasionally it's going to be 2 of them will go for 30 on the same night. Wouldn't it be something if they went for 90 combined? As a collective, like they averaged like 80 something last year easily, which is by far the most for any players. 3 players now on the same team. So it's just going to be fun to watch, and I do think speaking of when I think of Embiid's going to miss games, here, there, whatever. Paul George is going to help weather that storm, like we did not see this past season. I think of the real late in the season, a game at San Antonio, where it was Maxey played like every minute, went overtime.
I remember that.
Like, he was exhausted. And, you said it. You're not going to have to do that.
He's not going to have to do that.
They brought in. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, defensively, you can't mention Paul George and not bring up his defense because he has been on defensive teams
and again,
a lot in his career.
Obviously, he's not all defensive level anymore. Like, he's not OKC level defense, Indiana level defense, first couple of years of LA level defense. He's really good still, but he's not like locked down. Like, a lot of people on Twitter when the trade happened were like, "Oh, Paul George is washed." Well, no, he's not washed. That's actually insane to say, especially if you've watched Paul George like at all the past couple of years. He's not washed at all. Sure, he's not. I mean, we talked about it earlier in the episode. Like, he's not the same player he used to be. He's not the same player he was. But the player he is now is still really good. He's still one of the best two-way players in the league. And a big reason why he's so good and so productive is because of his two-way ability. That is very rare, that really only a few guys in the NBA can match. And it's actually funny. The Sixers have another one of those guys, Joel Embiid. So, yes, Paul George is not the same. I think I've said that about 10 times. He's not the same player he used to be. He's not the same Paul George from a couple of years ago. But who he is now is still really good. And defensively, he can play, he can switch multiple positions. He can guard guards. He can guard bigger wings. He can guard smaller bigs. And he can defend in the paint a little bit. He can block shots. Like, he's a really good shot blocking guard, if he's even a guard. I guess he's a guard wing, whatever. He's really good at blocking shots. He's really good at contesting shots. And having a wing who can do that is also very, very rare. Especially because he's an all-star. He's an all-NBA player. That's rare. Most guys are pretty offensive-minded wings. It's just very rare. Like, for a 34-year-old and for the washed comments, like, the player he is still an extremely rare breed of player that you just don't see.
Exactly. He's very unique. What he brings on both sides is great, and it still is. It's different, but that doesn't even in some areas that doesn't even make it worse, right? Like, I mean, the Paul George that we see now than what we saw 10 years ago. Like, I'm taking the Paul George as a shooter now than I am 10 years ago. And
oh my gosh,
so there's certain components that he's better at. There's certain things that he's worse at, I guess you could say, but like, still very good and still more than capable and still an all-star player and still going to do a lot for this Sixers team. And perhaps another unique thing for Paul George is, again, he's adapted throughout his career. He goes through an injury that could have ended his career, adapted, became a better player after that. And I saw an article or maybe a video and I didn't watch it fully or read it fully, I don't remember, but like, it was the context of Paul George now. It might have been something he said on his own podcast about like adapting his game and getting better and changing and looking to guys like Kobe Bryant, what they did late in their career, and LeBron James, what he's done late in his career. And being willing to do that. And I think he's, the reason he's had the career that he's had is because of being willing to change and being willing to do things different and get different looks and change his game. And so he's going to continue to do that even in his tenure with the Sixers, however long that may be. We're going to see different versions of Paul George, and I'm okay with that because I think he knows what's best and how he can perform well. And to the point defensively, I mean, you can't help but think of a team like the Boston Celtics, and they have Jason Tatum, they have Jaylen Brown. Paul George is guarding one of those guys in a series, right? Like, it's just going to happen. And they might score a lot of points, but Paul George is still a crafty defender. He's going to make them look silly sometimes. Like, he's that good. And he still brings some of that to the table. So that's exciting because, frankly, you match up with the Celtics last season because Anthony Melton was hurt a lot of the season. Like, who the heck do you put on those guys?
Right.
And, you think about that Knicks matchup. Like, Tobias Harris looked lost at times defensively. He had his moments, but Paul George provides more, and he can guard one of those guards that starts going off too. Like, he can adapt, and that's exciting to see. So, closing statements, sir, on Paul George.
Think about it. Think about this. Ready for this?
Yeah.
For the most part, every single team's third best defender is going to be guarding Paul George. Think about that. Just internalize that for a few minutes, if you will. Every team's third best defender, who probably is not very good unless you're the Knicks or the Thunder or the Celtics. I mean, even then, it's probably Drew Holiday. He's good, but having to guard a guy who's like almost a foot taller than you is not easy. Actually, no. What am I saying? He's only like 5 inches taller than Drew Holiday. Whatever. Not easy. With the exception of very few teams in the NBA, your third best player is gonna have to guard Paul George. Imagine how that's gonna play out.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
That's it.
That's all. I'm done.
And Paul George is the type of guy that's just going to be licking his chops at that. Like, he's going to be very thrilled with that news, right? If he's watching, you're listening, Paulie. That's a good thing for you. And he's not a guy that's going to shrink back from that, and that's an exciting thing. A lot of times I think, like, we've talked about some pieces that the Sixers need. Still need a guard, still need this. A lot of people say still need shooters, and a lot of times, like, I'm like, wow, like, yeah, you got Kelly Oubre, who doesn't shoot that well for three, but chucks them up. You got Martin, who shoots some threes, who can make them. And but to me, what is nice is, I can't help but bring up Tobias Harris, is now one of your big three. Tobias wasn't really even in the big three, but for argument's sake, his money was big. It was big three money. All right,
yeah.
So your three players that are getting paid the most. How about that? Last year, Tobias Harris, through his whole Sixers tenure, didn't shoot enough threes. In this modern NBA, shot 3-4 a game. Now it's like you don't have to go and get X, Y, and Z to come off the bench and shoot threes because you have someone in your starting lineup alongside Tyrese Maxey who's going to get up a lot of threes, 8-9 a game, and so that it's almost like it's weird now to have that other star player that shoots a lot of threes. Because a lot of times you think 3-and-D players, Paul George is a 3-and-D player, but he's also very good outside of that. Yeah. So. And
the Sixers haven't had, their last real third star was Jimmy. No, that's not even true. Well, yes, actually that is true, because technically Simmons is the second star. Well, even he didn't shoot as many threes, though. Or did he? No, I have to look this up. I have to look this up now.
James Harden had to shoot a good bit. Had to.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. He took 7 a game. Whatever. Just forget. I'm done. My brain's fried. We just did like 80 minutes.
But it's from a wing position. It's different. Yeah. And again, like people are gonna bring up the argument. Well, yeah, James Harden didn't work. It's different now. Not guaranteed it's gonna work, but
dude, I can make a whole episode on that. Like the fact that people are saying that is just insane.
Yeah, it's different thing. He's gonna take a lot more catch and shoot threes than James Harden did.
Oh yeah,
James Harden did a lot of his damage. A lot, 90. That's maybe not 98%, but like 90%.
A lot, majority. A lot.
Majority of his damage off the dribble. So. Paul George can be different, and I'm excited for the season, man. Let's go. We got a long ways to go. Make sure you check out the Summer Sixers. In the meantime, check out Ricky Council, Jared McCain getting the job done for the boys.
Jeff Doughton Jr.
We'll see what goes on there.
Podcast P, let's collab.
Yes, Podcast P. We're Planet 76. Welcome aboard. This is episode 155. and we will see you next time on Planet 76.
You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.